What's going on, everybody? I'm Grimnot,
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Ross, Boss MTG.
and today we are going to do Elemental Warfare element review for Light. Elemental Warfare comes out August 1st, 2024. We're doing a pack giveaway for anybody that goes and likes the tweet that is pinned on my Twitter, which you can see underneath. I believe Boss has also retweeted that tweet. But if you go like a YouTube video and post a screenshot of it on the tweet that I posted, you're going to get a free starter pack from me, and you'll be entered into a giveaway that I'm going to do live on Twitch during release day. I'm going to give away 6 packs of the Elemental Warfare set. Go watch our videos. If you're watching now, make sure you hit the like button, take a picture of it, put it on the Twitter. So before we get started, what do you think about Light? You excited about this?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a condensed element. It has fewer cards than the others, but has a higher number of diamonds and a higher number of like individually strong cards, I think.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat, just in terms of power level. I think it's got some very important cards that we're going to see. And yeah, I believe we come up with the numbers. It's like 33% of the light cards in the set are diamond. Is that right? Like a third of
Mm,
them, I believe it is. There's 30 cards, and I believe 10 of them are diamond.
yeah, I have to do the math right quick, which I can do right now. It's 10 of them, yeah. There's
Yeah,
10 diamonds.
that's 33% of all the light cards in this set. All right, well, without further ado, let's just get right into it with our first card. We're in here for Whiff. This is a 2 mana 6/2 with Aegis.
Yeah, I think this little guy's really awesome. We see 2 mana Aegis cards before, but they always have 4 power at the best. What you want to do with your Aegis card is, I mean, nothing to trade into it immediately. They have to use 2 cards to get rid of it, or 2 effects. But at 2 mana, you're probably going to be like playing this and then attacking into their 5/6 or something, and then you're just left with a 6/2. And then with your 6/2, after it uses its Aegis already, you can go ahead and evolve to the next evolution in Swift.
Yeah, absolutely. That 6 power is really important here, I think, right? I like we've seen you spoke about some of the other 2 mana Aegis cards, but that 6 power, I think, just it trades well with a lot of other cards that are being played currently in standard, and I think that just makes this tremendously better. And all of the other elemental Aegis and Aegis cards that we've seen in the 2 mana slot, I believe they all have evolution chains that we've seen widely played. So I'm expecting Swift, as you spoke about, to also see some play. So we're right in here with our first diamond card in Swift, which is 4 mana, 8/4 with Aegis.
Yeah, great chain off of whiff. You play this on turn 3 if you had to whiff, and after you already attacked, maybe attacked their creature, maybe attack them for 6. Also, just playing on turn 4 is completely okay. It's a huge power um, for casting cost a creature just to begin with, and then it's going to trade with something, or just trade off the Aegis for some amount of value. It's going to be tough to kill. It doesn't get killed by the common 4-drop things like Fungal Spores off Fungorth. I think that's just pretty well sized and a pretty good threat and a pretty good evolution off a whiff. So I like this chain quite a lot.
You think that I think that Swift could see play in standard. You believe this is going to see some play in standard?
I believe whiff will. You don't necessarily have to go to Swift, but I think whiff is it's pretty just solid on its own. I probably play like 2 whiff, 1 Swift, just because you have to have the whiff for the Swift. It doesn't really work in the reverse. So
So
yeah,
So would you play Swift as a standalone card? Is that something that you could see playing? Obviously, I think we both could agree that it'll be absolutely great and limited. I'm just trying to, I guess, in my mind, and I'm not, I won't say that I'm an Aegis connoisseur, if you will, but that 8 power to me seems like it might be a draw to possibly see play by itself.
yeah, I think whiff is a stronger card. It just hits the 2 mana slot and trades with the 2 mana cards that you see on the opposing side just very well. So I expect to see Swift along with Whiff. I don't believe it would be a standalone card.
Fair enough. Yeah, I didn't know if that 8 power kind of pushed it over in there. I know we had seen some other Aegis cards. Just I don't think we've seen very many at this low cost with that high power. Um, so I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes. So we'll move into Hoofy here, who's a 2 mana 4/4 Light of Aldrich.
Yeah, this is very similar to Aegis. A Light of Aldrich, when this creature would die, instead it doesn't die, and it just comes back with its toughness restored. So if something would trigger on something dying or coming into play, that didn't happen. It just gets rid of the Light of Aldrich kind of shield and comes back with its toughness restored. We saw this before in Ankia, the Light or the White from set 4. This is worse because that card was 5/4. This is a 4/4. So I mean, it's more accessible. Like that card was kind of expensive, and this effect is kind of good. But I mean, this would be a cheap version of the Anki if you really want to just have a Light of Roger card. But otherwise, wouldn't really play it in standard. It'd be good in limited, of course. Though.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost always Anki is going to be your first choice if you're looking for that Light of Aldrich card in the 2-drop slot. And Anki is a 2 mana 5/4 with Light of Aldrich, so very similar to this card, but it was a diamond rarity, as you said, much harder to find. Hoofy's always going to be a second option, and I don't think that there's going to be many people that are playing a more than 1 2-drop slot with Light of Aldrich. So um, perfectly said. Couldn't have added anything different. So now we've got a new ability coming up, and we've got our first standalone diamond card. This is Jesus the Risen. It's an epic name champion, so remember, keep those in mind as we move forward into heroes. We know that eventually this card will likely get a hero. It's a 6 mana 9/9 with a brand new ability that is new to Elemental Warfare. This is Divine Protection.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. So Divine Protection means for your whole turn until your next turn, you cannot take direct damage, as the card says. You cannot take direct damage into your next turn. This means a bunch of different things. One, they cannot attack you. Anytime they attack you directly, you take no damage. You cannot get combustioned directly. You cannot be vortex directly. But it doesn't stop all the effects you may do to yourself. So I know that you can, if you play this in like a black-white deck and you play a Raised Dead card, you will still lose that much life. So this is stopping all effects from the opponent for sure. It may stop some effects to yourself, say like the damage dealt from your own combustion, but I cannot confirm nor deny that. But what I do know is anything they do to you, completely stopped. And that's it. Maybe some things you do yourself may be stopped. But this does look like a strong effect on a 6 mana 9/9 card. It basically says they cannot attack you. You can't take any more damage. They can attack your creatures, so that's kind of what's going on here.
Yeah, to me it feels like unless you're maybe raised deading yourself, you're not really taking any damage. I was just kind of sitting here thinking, well, I've ran into in a very niche situation here, and obviously will require us to do some testing. But I've ran into some situations where I've played like combustion cards, but I'm lower than I'm at 7 life or 6 life, and I'm like, well, I really can't play this because I'm risking losing the game. Well, now I wonder if there's a way that you know divine protection maybe stops that, where I play the combustion card and target myself, and it just nullifies all of the damage entirely, right? Because both of those would be, in my mind, direct player damage. But as you said, I think it'll take some testing. What I will say is I think that this could be very easily abused. I want to see some testing with this, and I think maybe we'll do some a little later when we get down to doing some play testing with the decks and maybe recording some content for that. But having this on a 9/9 body is probably not what I'm looking for, because I really want to just start bringing it back every turn. I want to be able to have it die and bring it back the next turn and be like, I don't care that you're attacking me or clearing my board. You just can't kill me. And then maybe Soul Reaper. We've seen some of the nice dark cards that have come out. Some cheap Soul. Yeah, Soul Reaper, not Soul Reaper. Raise Dead, and maybe just bring it back a whole bunch of times, where it's similar to some other things that we had seen, where you're kind of just time walking your opponent.
Yeah, we're kind of spoiling it a little bit. It's not coming out for another good 6 or 7 days from the time we're recording. This probably doesn't work with Raised Dead, as in preventing the life loss of Raised Dead with own divine protection. For that reason, that will be extremely strong and probably really annoying to you could just loop Cheesuses and say Bomb-Moth and Demothras or whatever. But I think the rate is pretty strong. We've seen this card before in like a Zera, the nature card is preventing people from attacking completely for it's like a 8 mana 7/8. And this is very similar to that. They can attack your Jesus, but they can't attack you, so you're getting a whole nother turn. And skipping them ability to deal damage to you at all, starting on 6, can be really strong. I mean, you play another one on 7, then you're on 8. Now you start sweeping, sweeping, sweeping. That's just a few turns of just clear them not hurting you at all. I think that's a big window, man. It's a big
Well,
game changer.
and kind of what I was thinking, I guess just so that I'm clear, I also believe that Raised Dead does not get stopped from this, but something like Viperous, where it only costs you 2 life, right? When I say some sort of abuse, I'm just talking about it, I guess, in terms of the time walk there, right? If I'm using something like Viperous and only having to pay 2 mana to bring back my Jesus every turn, or if I had a smaller version of a Divine Protection where it wasn't as big, that would be, I don't want to say that it's game breaking, but it's definitely going to be annoying to go, 3, 4, 5 turns where me as an opponent, I like nothing I do, no matter how much board state I have, all I can do is kill your things on board. Oh, cool. I devoted two attacks and 2 cards to killing your Jesus. And then I pass the turn and you go, oh, cool. Well, I have a Viperous. I'm going to pay 2 life and bring it back. Do it again. Like you're kind of propelling yourself really far ahead. It's not necessarily a time walk because obviously, as you said, they can still attack your things. They can still board wipe you, still play abilities. You're just, they can't attack you. And we've talked about this in a number of videos, but in the game, there is a pretty good balance between, and I think this is what sets the great players in the game apart from the good players that are in the game, which is being able to pressure your opponent's life total. And Jesus just says, "You're not going to do it. You're not going to pressure my life total. So figure out another path."
Yeah, it disrupts their game plan while assumingly you play a deck with wants to fill that gap and get the game into turn 7, turn 8, where you maybe play light in nature and you're ready with those sweepers. And you just want those key critical turns where you get to bridge that gap. And I mean, you're sitting there with a 9/9 too. It's like not like it's nothing. Not like you're just playing 6 mana just to say you can't attack me. I mean, you're putting the relevant card on the board too. So I think this card is going to be powerful. It's going to have to take an answer and really just take away from their ability that if they're trying to really beat you down on those turns 6, 7, 8, before you can really turn that corner. This card will prevent that while also putting a big threat in play.
Before we move to Grub, just really quick off the top of your head, and I want to make sure that I'm correct in my thinking. Jesus is the first 6 mana 9/9 we've seen. I think the earliest we had seen in 9/9 was 7. Is that correct?
Um,
I,
can't confirm that, but
I just off the top of your head, whether we're completely 100% accurate or not here, I believe it is the first 6 mana 9/9 we've seen. I don't think
maybe in light. Maybe in light.
I don't know if we've seen another one. If you think of one, just let me know at some point in the
Or
video.
just me in set 5.
Yeah, I know there hasn't been another one in set 5. I can't think of another 6 mana 9/9 that we've seen with a good ability, right? Most of our other 6 mana cards like Obliterate and even the ones that were in the other set were 8/9s or 9/8s. 9/9 is a big dude to have such a good ability. Either way, moving on, we have Grub. He's a 6 mana 9/9 elemental guard.
Yeah, here's your 6 mana 9/9. Elemental Guard. It means this can be targeted, nor can any of your light cards. This effect's usually good when you want to protect certain cards. I mean, from hexing and obliterating, from things like Axe and Urgok and Booger, from the previous sets and from this one. Um, it's a good card to protect from itself because it's 9/9. You don't want to just be killed without having to be taking combat damage. So it's nice to have it on itself. I don't know if there's light cards you really want to protect with this effect, but just having it on itself, just naturally having cards, is pretty strong. Common.
Yeah, I
Meh.
mean,
I don't know if they'll see constructed.
I don't think it'll see much constructed play. Probably just limited. So, I think in comparison, some of the other elemental guard card that already exists is probably just better. 6 mana, probably not what you want to be paying for your 9/9. However, this next card I think is going to get a ton of play. I'm interested to hear what you think about Huge. It is a 4 mana 7/9 with Greed.
Yeah, it is a huge creature for its cost. We haven't seen green greed directly in light. This is the first one. It's a very much the largest thing. Um, so I play a lot of Gale, which is a 5 cost dark greed creature from the last set, and it's a 7/9. I'm like, man, this card's just awesome on rate. I just like it a lot. And this is just 1 mana cheaper. It's like, wow, um, this is a huge draw for me to play light. Um, Playing say an egg, which is tough because we only have 2 mana egg. But a common play with the Gale was just playing an egg and then playing this off of it, and then you only have one champion in play, so you get the greed, you get full greed amount for the 2 cards. But even just playing this on 4 is such a low commitment. It's like it's going to make a big impact on the board, just being a 7/9, and you're gonna get your card back. And if you're losing, like maybe they play a sweeper and they have just a Fungorth in play, or whatever fungal spores creature they have, or maybe a big earthquake creature, and the whole board swept. And then you play this, draw your 2 cards. Now it's fine. Like your card's probably bigger than their card, and you drew 2 cards. I think it's gonna be like one of the best light cards we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I was actually going to ask you, and it sounded like you touched on it. Is there, you know, you and I chat a bunch, and you've played Gale a lot, and I thought a lot of the reason you played Gale was because you had access to 1 mana egg. Does the fact that that you do not have access to 1 mana egg in standard make this any less playable, or is just the fact that this is a 4 mana 7/9 greeter just good enough on its own?
I think the rate is so much better. Like 1 mana is just huge, as it were. And even just not having that 1 mana egg. I mean, black has or dark has black and perp, which are 2 mana 1 mana eggs. While white only has this gold. I mean, it's kind of unfair. It's just, all elements aren't created equal. But we're looking at. I mean, this is just super castable for where Gale is in that awkward spot of 5 where you can't double spell with things. I think I'll just be happy to put this in any light deck where I just was actually looking to egg out Gale. I just kind of am happy to just cast this.
Fair enough. Well, with that, we've got the big cheese here. We have the 1 mana 1/4 with Retribution Chew on our beautiful mouse looking champion.
Big cheese or small cheese, as it were. A 1 mana 1/4 retribution 2. When it dies, all the opponent's champions take 2 damage. Retribution it usually better on your champions that die more easily. Like I'm kind of unhappy to just run this into something. Say if you run into a 5/5 or 3/3. I mean, if they have a 3/3, it doesn't really run into anything because it survives. It's gonna be hard to convert cheese into a mini board wipe, as it were. But it's just so strong. I mean, look at it. It's a 1 mana 1/4 that they have to kill kind of soon before they really develop deeply into their board. The deeper they develop in their board with any retribution card, the more impactful your retribution card will be. And this card just gonna live for a while. It's kind of in a space where its stats are so great that I just want to put it into my light decks. But when you really want to pop off the retribution too, it may be kind of hard for you to control when you do that. But it looks good just on paper. So I think I'm into this. I want to try it out.
So on the surface, when I looked at this card, and this is kind of really the only note that I had, I was like, great, it's a 1 mana 1/4. It's got survivability. If it was to die, it's got a little retribution too. What's the evolution? And then I look and I realize it's a standalone card. There is no evolution. I was really expecting when I was looking through these cards that this card would have an evolution where there would be some, different type of payoff. So the fact that it's standalone, I think I'm probably a little lower on it than you are at the moment. But I agree with you. The rate is good. I just I was really expecting an evolution out of that. It to me when I looked at it, it felt like a card from what we had seen in previous elements to just being a card that evolves. That's got some, where you could get some great value if it died. Like, cool, I get to deal 2 damage to everything, and I didn't get to evolve it. It had that big, toughness on it where it would survive, and then it kind of, to me, it fell flat when I found out that there wasn't an evolution to it. But this next card, I believe, was the card that you spoiled. I believe that would have came out on Wednesday. You posted out a tweet. This is Timu Wapu, and I think you're super excited about this card, so I'm going to leave this one mostly to you. It's a 5 mana 7/7 with this ability, Time Warp 2.
Yeah, I could not believe this card was a common when I first looked at it. 5 mana 7/7. So Time Warp 2 means there are only max of 1, 2, 3 evolutions. Like you can go from 1 to 2 to 3. So Time Warp 2 would take something from 1 to 3 straight up. There's nothing that goes beyond that. And they just evolve immediately. So if we had this whiff, it would become a swift. If it had another evolution beyond that, it would just go straight up all the way from that. If we know about these bogs and the boogers and the blight oozes, straight from bog to blight ooze. And we saw this effect before on a mythic, a diamond that cost more from the previous set in Ethanar. Had the same exact Time Warp 2, and it was a very expensive card. And I can't believe they just make this thing a common for much cheaper. And the power and toughness don't really matter. You're getting 2 mana cheaper, and power and toughness are smaller. But you're really looking for the Time Warp 2 effect here, and it's gonna be game swinging. Like we see some things from the previous set, like good bless cards for like Geode, 2 mana 3/4 with bless 4. It goes all the way up to 7, and in 2 different evolutions. And it's like bless, huge toughness, huge power, huge stats. Like you see a 5 mana 7/7, that's like okay, but you're getting like a buff probably about equal to 5/5 on average if you target something. So we're thinking 5 mana 12. Then you get another trigger of their huge ability, which is probably like bless 6. So these stats are just getting kind of out of control, and this you're not really asking for much here. It's like just a few cards that have any evolutions, and if they only have one evolution, fine. Like I don't really care. You're still getting a 5 mana 7/7 out of this, and everybody's gonna have access to it. I think anybody that wants to play light, just even if you just download the game August 1st, you're gonna have access to this card, and you play white, and you're gonna be playing this on turn 5. You're gonna be targeting anything you haven't played that has an evolution, and you're gonna get a massive advantage. And it's gonna bring all the white players just as competitive decks in the metagame, just like day one, just because of this card. I think it's going to be one of the most influential cards from this set, just by how accessible it will be and how powerful the effect is.
Absolutely. And I'm going to throw Aethernar up on the screen just as a side-by-side comparison so everybody can see. This is Aethernar, the Great Weaver. It is an epic name champion. Maybe at some point Aethernar will end up with its own hero. But it was a 7 mana 9/9 that we got from last set that had Time Warp 2. And the key note here, like you said, is this was a diamond card, right? As a 7 mana 9/9, I know I had one. I sold it to a good friend of ours, but they were going pretty regularly for like $150. I mean, and that's to in relative terms of pricing of cards in our economy here. That's expensive. That's very expensive for a card. And then the fact that we shift back over to Timu Wapu and you have a 5 mana 7/7 that's a common card, like you can open a light pack and you're probably going to get one every pack you open, right? So it's an interesting shift. And the fact that it has Time Warp 2 is just crazy. The things that you can pair it with are baffling to me. And the fact that it is a 7/7, I think, is what really pushes this card over the edge. Like, it's not the Time Warp 2. It's not the fact that it's 5 mana. It's the fact that it's a 7/7. Because one of the things that we often see is that Bofa, which is from the last set, which was the 3 mana Time Warp 1 card for 3 mana, it was a 5/7. And a lot of times you'll know that your opponent has a board wipe coming, and you'll take your smaller creature and you just evolve it one time, and now you have two things that your opponent has no real way to deal with. And this is taking that to a whole new level and saying, I'm going to get really outrageous, as you said, and really big in the stats, but also you can't kill me. Like, there's not going to be any, pity fungal spores with this card, right? Whatever you're evolving into is probably going to have more than five on the backside. It's got more than five on the backside. If this was a 7/5, I think the card would still be really good, but the fact that you would be able to kind of remove it as soon as it came in and did its ability, I think would have made it a little more fair. But this card feels almost unfair. Last set, I know we try not to talk a lot about last set or other sets, but there, to give another side by side comparison, there was another card that was 5 mana that had Time Warp on it that was a 5/6, and it was only Time Warp 1, and it made its way into some standard decks. Like even Wonder, when it came out, it still made a little bit of breach into standard. But I 100% agree with you. Everything you said. This card's going to be almost game breaking, I think, it's going to be interesting to see how people choose to play light and utilize this card with another element and see what evolutions we got. We've seen some really cool evolutions in normal that were coming out. We've done all of the other elements. The possibilities are almost endless with this card. It's just amazing. So we see Aethernar there again on the screen for everybody. We'll skip right over to Christo. And I want to preface this card with, I think this might be the most influential card in Light. And I think that that's because of this new ability that exists on it. So this is Christo. It's a 2-mana 2/7 with a new ability called Purify.
Yeah, I think this raid is quite strong. 2-mana 2/7 Purify. Purify says you target a card, a champion, they lose all passive abilities. So if it had Aegis on it, that's gone. If it had an ability that would die, a trigger when it dies, like a Shatter, that would be gone. It has abilities that would trigger off anything like a Wildfire or Rising Waters. Yeah, all that stuff's gone. At this rate, a 2-mana 2/7, that is a good creature just coming down. I mean, you could hit there. If you hit like some of the smaller eggs from previous sets, like a black or a perp, the ones, that card's just gone. You destroyed. You don't care if they have a 0/1. You just destroyed their card. If it comes on something like, say, Timberfawn, a 3-mana or 2-mana 3/5 with Shatter, that card's close to gone. You probably broke even. You have a 2/7, they were 3/5. But I think really just destroying their eggs and having the flexibility to just mess with their game plan with just such a cheap card, and a cheap card that comes with a evolution too. I think it's gonna hit a lot of light decks. I think it's gonna be in actually all light decks, and after Gen 5 comes out.
So in my mind, when I think about early cards that I want to play, I say one, is the rate that I'm getting good for the mana that I'm casting, right? So I'm paying 2 mana, I'm getting a 2/7. As you mentioned, the rate is fantastic. It's a great rate. It's 9 total stats, which is really what you're getting out of everything. But more importantly, is the card is living, because this is part of an evolution change, so you're going to be able to evolve it. The Purify ability is very, very interesting. So because it says it resets a card back to its target base stats, not only are you going to be able to interact with other light cards, something like Rising Waters that we talked about in a previous set review over in Water. Purify is just going to completely nullify that. You're going to reset the card back to whatever stat it is, and then you're going to remove all of the buffs or debuffs that it has on it. So with the new wording, because I just noticed that the wording is a little different than I think what we had initially seen. Initially, it was to remove the ability. Now it says reset a target card back to its base stats and remove all buffs and debuffs. So you can also use this on your own creatures if they get cursed. I don't know if this will restore health after an attack. It'll obviously take some testing. But the fact that this evolves, and it's on a 2-mana, 2/7 body, it's like almost always going to live past its first turn that it's played. So then it evolves into a little bigger version. We have Crystal Roar, which is a 5-mana 7/9 with Purify.
Yeah, it's come to a great evolution. But just going on to the recent update. Yeah, it used to say it removes basically the text from a card. This is basically saying it heals your card. So, say my if you have a different 2/7 in the Christo, you and add 5 damage on it, that the new Purify would kind of reset it back to where it was. Removes all buffs and debuffs, which is kind of cool. I like that as well. I like the chain just in general, whether Purify does this or that, because it just comes off a card that we're not going to change the base stats of Christo. It just will live. It will live. And you can play this on turn 3. It's a 7/9. 7/9 on turn 3 is going to be great. And Purify, no matter what Purify does, will be impactful for whatever's going on turn 3. Or you can play on turn 5 and it'll impact the board too.
Well, and again, I haven't done our normal video disclaimer, but full disclaimer: all of these things are subject to change before the set comes out. We were informed that they were still actively making some changes. So, just because today it says reset a target card and put its base stats back and remove all buffs and debuffs does not mean that that's what it's going to say when it comes out. The likelihood is I believe that this changed from the last time that we read the card to now, so this will probably be a locked-in ability. But just as a general disclaimer, there may be some small, subtle changes or some larger changes that happen to any of the cards that we've reviewed. But the fact that it says removes all buffs and debuffs, I don't necessarily want to do a deep dive on that, but it'll be interesting to find out what they consider to be a buff and debuff. I think some interpretations inside of the game have not necessarily been the same as other TCGs that we've played. So to me, a buff could be any card that has an ability. Is Wildfire considered a buff? Right? It's just something that a card has that's attached to it. So would you be able to remove that, or would you keep your Wildfire ability? I don't know. It'll be very interesting to kind of see what happens with that. I'm assuming debuff would be something like Blizzard or Curse. You would be able to remove those. But I think
Be
without
cool.
further, yeah, absolutely. To be able to remove Blizzard, I think that would be, in terms of something for light, I think that would be good. But I think that's also something that we'll have to verify through some testing, and maybe we'll put something out a little later about that because I think this is one of the more complex abilities that has been released. But keeping it moving, we have Mummy, which is a 4 mana 6/9 with Elemental Aegis.
Yeah, pretty good size here. 4 mana 6/9, pretty nice. Elemental Aegis coming off. Well, we'll go into Elemental Aegis right quick. It has its own stack of Aegis, and you get another stack for every light creature they have in play. Um, Opposing to what we saw in Whiff that has a high power, low toughness, I don't particularly love having Aegis on cards that have high toughness because that's just basically what Aegis does. It removes all damage from a particular source in one shot. Um, but the stats are kind of big. I mean, it's pretty big. It's a 6/9. Like you kind of see like 7/9, 8/9s for this cost. It's coming with that natural Aegis plus more chances of getting Aegis based on the number of light creatures you have. I think you can get a couple of stacks from this, and this will be like a threat that you have to deal with outside of combat.
So let me ask you a question, kind of just in regards to this for the viewership. So something that I have seen, and again, we try to keep our videos in tune with what we have here, but comparatively, I have noticed throughout the set review that there are some cards like this. This is a 4 mana 6/9 Elemental Aegis. Uh, if you were comparatively looking at previous 4 mana Elemental Aegis cards, this rate compared to some of the other ones that we've seen, I think isn't as good. Kind of as you have said, this has got 9 in the toughness. I think Light has another Elemental Aegis guy that's like 8/5 that already exists at 4 mana cross on. So comparatively, I don't know if this sees play over that. And, I think even furthermore, this doesn't have an evolution chain. So you're really you're playing it at face value. There's no chance to recoup any of your resources. You're really just hoping that you're getting some value out of the multiple elemental Aegis stacks. The fact that it has 9 toughness means it's practically unkillable. But kind of as you said, I think you would rather have this be a 9/6 versus a 6/9, right? Because you're
Yeah.
getting your value out of being able to either clear your opponent's board by attacking with it or getting some damage across and forcing your opponent to attack into it. And you want to make sure that you're killing whatever is getting attacked. And we've seen some, this whole set has been kind of littered with some big toughness champions throughout it. So I'm not so sure how I feel about that. But I had just kind of noticed that we'd gotten a lot of cards with some similar abilities to cards that had already been printed, and this is one that I don't feel would be played, and I don't know. Especially not in light. I don't know that it's in line with what you're trying to do. Although combining it with some bless could make it very good. I think that would be a good way to do that, right? If you were to play some Bless and power it up. But we'll move on to another Purify card here. And this one does not have an evolution chain, but is only one mana. So we have Phoenix, 1 mana, 2/1 with Purify.
It's interesting. I think it's worse than the Christo. You want to play pure 5 cards when you have good targets. Just playing a 1 mana 2/1 isn't really what you want to be doing. So I think it's worse than the previous Purify cards we've seen so far. And even though it looks like you want to get on the board and kind of to affect things early, I think I'd avoid this one.
Yeah, I'm of the same volition. I just think the 2 mana 2/7 is a much better body. So next up we've got Magia, and this is a 5 mana 3/7 Singularity card. We have not talked about Singularity.
Huge card. Used to be only in Cosmic/Normal, the Singularity effect. So at the beginning of your turn, after you had a turn cycle, if this card lives, it destroys every champion in play and gives +4/+4 to Magia. An enormous effect on a single word here. So you're trying to set up a board where basically just this happens, and having that 7 toughness kind of helps it happen. And you can complement this with various provoke cards, various removal spells, making sure that if this card triggers, it's going to be. I mean, you can do the math. 4 times 5 or something, 23, 27. I mean, that's just maybe an average that destroys 5 cards. Maybe it destroys 2 cards. Also, a big thing about this, it means that if they cannot destroy this on their turn, they just basically can't play any cards. They just concede the fact that this thing's going to trigger, and they just don't do anything on their turn. So, as you say, time walk them plus get a huge card. Yeah, most games are ending on a Singularity trigger. And I don't think it's going to be any different in this version of it either.
So I am of the volition. Singularity is a fantastic ability. You and I have chatted about this, but I'm when Singularity gets played against me, I start like trying to calculate math, and most people just tell you should just surrender if it's going to trigger and you can't do anything about it. But what I find interesting about where this is at, this is one of the very few times that I'm going to say a 5-drop card is, I think, very good. There's not often times that I will say that I'm excited about a 5-drop card. This is one of those. So with it being a 7 toughness champion, it's going to live through a lot of things that your opponent can do on turn 5. But where I'm most interested to see this is at the top end of some very aggressive light lists. So very similarly to other card games that we've played, what I would like to see, and I think is something that we will see, is some very aggressive light lists that by turn 4 or turn 5, you're really low on health already, and they have this crazy board that you're trying to deal with. 4 or 5 things that have come along that are really strong. And then if I'm sitting across the table and I see that, and then my opponent plays Magia, right? Now I'm going, I also now have to deal with this threat. And if I don't deal with this threat, I'm probably just losing the game if it triggers. So now instead of them being able to deal with the things that you already have on the board, this is closing the game out because now you're forcing your opponent with their limited mana, their 5 or 6 mana, to deal with your threat here to allow the rest of your board to get through. Or they deal with the threat, or they don't deal with a threat, and it blows up, and then you die. So that's where I'm most excited to see it, is where it's at the closer to the top end of most decks, where maybe it goes from like this to maybe like an 8 mana play from there, and you're just you're being super aggressive. That's where I think that this card is really going to shine, where you're forcing your opponent to make some tough decisions on what they're trying to deal with.
Yeah, you try to pretty much trying to splinter your threats. Like say as you're saying, you have a bunch of uh, champions and you have a wide board. You have three 4/4s or whatever, and they play this, and they have to deal with all the 4/4s, or they have to deal with this, and they probably can't deal with both. They could probably deal with this or the others, and they're going to lose to whatever one they don't deal with. So you're kind of just diversifying your threats, putting pressure on top of pressure, and yeah, adding singularity to light, which you didn't have before, can really give another angle of pressure on the opponent that light didn't have before.
Absolutely. Well, our next evolution chain, speaking of pressure, is going to be pressuring people's life totals for the entire season after this set comes out. We have got Monkadillo, which is a 3 mana 4/4 with Bless 6.
Yeah, this one's actually pretty interesting. It has an evolve into a nature card. I think this is the only cross element card we have here. But anyway, this is the base stats on it. 3 mana 4/4 plus 6. At worst, it's going to be a 10/4. 10/4 for 3, pretty good. You're probably putting this on whatever you cast on 2. Like maybe you cast a 0/4 egg, but we'll see later. And you make it to a 6/4 egg. That's going to be enormous. But realistically, play on something like we saw the 2/7 Christo. Make that a 8/7. Now it's just attacking everything they play on 2, everything they play on 3. It's kind of getting you a step ahead by advancing the power of the card you played previously. So you're kind of getting a turn advantage. Like you're getting a previous turn advantage, like making an 8/7 if we're talking about this 2/7 Crucio. But you're getting left with the 3 mana 4/4. But at base, you can just make it 2 mana or 3 mana 10/4. It's very. It either gets you a step ahead or has a pretty reasonable floor, but also you can play it on. You don't have to play on turn 3. You can play it whenever. Then we'll get to talk about this evolution. You got it loaded up?
I do. So I pulled it up. It's Druidillo, 3 mana 4/4 with Life Bloom 8.
Yep, looking like the kind of reverse. And usually, increasing power is better than increasing your life or the toughness of any champions you have. Life Bloom, you can target yourself, so if you're in a pinch, you can gain 8 life. But Druidillo is pretty strong too. I mean, it's 3 mana 4/12.
Yeah, I
Did
mean,
I say that right? I mean, I just
yes,
said that. I was like, really? Did I say that? 3 mana 4/12?
that's a 3 mana 4/12 or gain 8. One quick tidbit, and I just noticed this. So this evolution chain, I know we said it was a cross evolution chain. Um, it looks like, and again, this is just the best that I can gather from what I can see, that anytime you have Druidillo, you can evolve it into Monkadillo, and anytime you have Monkadillo, you can evolve it into Druidillo. So they're
Yeah, that's right.
interchangeable. Yeah. So instead of it going, Druidillo and then Monkadillo, you can just interchange this either which way. Obviously, this would require you to play both nature and light, and I'm not sure that we're necessarily going to see a bunch of that. But yeah, that's a very neat little tidbit there. I think the first one we've seen that way. So.
Neat, but it's like they're so big on their own.
Mm-hmm.
If they target themselves, if they don't target themselves, say I'll put my Druidillo effect on something smaller, then yeah, I'll want to revolve it. But you're not gaining a mana advantage. You're getting rid of a 4/4. I think they're just evolution just aside. They're both extremely strong cards.
Yeah,
They should probably
completely on their own, and that's kind of what I was thinking, right? Monkadillo being in that 3 drop slot. You mentioned some of the other cards that already exist, like Joidy and Joidal, but I think crucially the 3 mana slot in light specific decks has been more like Chromatia. I can't think of very many other like great 3 mana light cards that are continuing to like put pressure on your opponent. Like you're going from Ankia or Joidy into usually your three. From what I've seen has been like you're playing two cards. Sometimes it's like a one and a two drop. But Monkadillo slots in very nicely, I think, into a lot of those lists. Just in terms of the fact that you're going to get a 3 mana 4/4 that could be, as you said, a 10/4, but you can also just bless another one of your creatures and just get immediate impact value out of it on turn 3, and then you roll kind of right into your turn 4s and 5s. Very interesting. I wonder, and I'd like to hear your thoughts before we move on to the next card. If I were to time warp to this or both of this, how would that? So time warp 2 would be interesting. Would it go Monkadillo back to Monkadillo since technically it can evolve interchangeably? So would you just get a rebuff on the Bless 6? So I would be interested to see that. But also, if I'm not playing nature, can I both of this and get the other side of it? I assume you would be able to, right?
I would assume if you both it, if something time warp is at 1, I assume it go to the next step. Time warp 2, we'd have to see.
Yeah, that I think we'll leave that one up to maybe some play testing to do later. Good card, great conversation. So moving forward, we've got another big blesser. We've got Aquifer, and this is a 6 mana 5/6, albeit not a great body, but it has bless 10.
Yeah, bless 10's a big number. Give 10 power to any creature, including this one. It can be a 6 mana deal an extra 10 to the opponent. The number is so big that you probably want to go put it on something and go straight to the opponent. A lot of these blessed creatures, if they're smaller numbers, like 3, 4, 5, you kind of size it on something small, then kind of trade it off with a good trade. I mean, you put like bless 5 on a 1/1 and tack another 6 off the creature and make a good trade there. But its numbers is so big, I think it's just a really aggressive card where you just mostly just want to go face with it. You having a 15/6, that's a radar, right? That's a thing you can do. But I really want to be pretty proactive with this, and I mean, just put it on literally anything and get them for an extra 10, and hopefully you win the damage race from there.
Yeah, and if you're not winning the damage race, 10 extra damage, I think is probably going to shift it back into your favor given the way that matches are played. Again, I think you said most of that pretty well. So we'll just move right into the next evolution chain. We've got Laga, who is a 2 mana 5/4, great rate for a 2 mana card, I think, and it has that purify ability that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, this isn't the third beer champion we've covered here. But yeah, purify, either whether it removes kind of the text from something or it restores while removing debuffs or buffs. This is, I think, it's a fantastic rate here. 2 mana for a 5/4 with a good effect and with a good evolution. I think it's going to see some play.
Absolutely. And if you don't like Laga, we've got Pilsner for you. So we're getting all of the different brewskis out here this set. So instead of elemental warfare, maybe we should be in the brewery warfare. But we've got a 4 mana 6/6. It's got Retribution 4, evolves off of our Laga. What are your thoughts on this one?
I thought beer drinkers evolved from drinking pilsners to lagers, but that's a whole different conversation. We're going from Laga 2-drop, a 5/4, to a 4 mana 6/6 retribution, which is a sizable effect and a sizable power and toughness here. We've got the retribution 4. It's a size of toughness where you can reasonably get it killed if you want to get it killed, and if you're dealing 6 to something in attack, the retribution 4 is going to sweep away the creature attacked, plus a sizable amount on their board. Kind of like what's going on here. You get a good amount of value from the previous Laga, and you're going into something that's going to be a threat, and be a threat to die, and be a threat that when it dies, it's going to take a lot along with it.
Yeah,
I think it's
absolutely.
legit.
The body seems fine. The one thing I want to point out, and I don't think we've pointed this out in any of the other videos, kind of about this, like we've seen other retribution cards. So for those of you that are joining us that have been, longtime players, set 3, set 4, set 2, set 1, what have you, like we've seen other retribution 4 cards. Like there's Miri 2 mana, you get your retribution 4 on a much smaller body, which I think is what you're wanting out of your your Retribution card. But I think the thing to keep in mind is even though at face value, there are probably better Retribution 4 cards that already exist or that are coming out in this set. At some point, those are going to rotate out of standard. And I think that the developers have done a good job, or the game creators have done a good job of setting us up for power decline a little bit. And because, we have power creep every set, where things just inherently get a little bit stronger every set to kind of counteract some of this stuff. I think the thing to keep in mind though is that since we have a rotation, eventually those 2 and 3 mana Retribution 4 cards are going to go away, and that I think is going to give some cards like Pilsner some inherent value where you go, well, now this is the next best option. I have a 4 mana 6/6 that has Retribution 4. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays, but just to try to keep in mind if there are cards that you're seeing that don't look as strong as stuff that we have printed now, just remember that those things are going to rotate out at some point. And then we'll move right on into Rufus here. We have another Light of Aldrich card. This one, I think, could potentially see some play. It's got a nice evolution line, but it is a 3 mana 4/6 with Light of Aldrich.
Yeah, we saw a 3 mana Light of Aldrich and a 5/5 in Chromatia and in Gen 4. I think this is actually stronger because, again, I guess at that critical point of between 5 toughness and 6 toughness. So you're kind of getting through the sweepers where you otherwise wouldn't. And the previous card, Chromatia, didn't have a good evolution that kind of fit the pattern where you want to be playing it. And I think having a 3 mana 4/6 with Light of Aldrich going into Raccoonus, which also has Light of Aldrich, is going to fit into the game plans that want Light of Aldrich in general.
Absolutely right. Just in general, that having that 6 toughness, I think, is what makes this evolution chain work. Because with Chromatia or just Light of Aldrich in general, if you have an evolution chain, I think, in my brain, you want to attack with that and trade off somebody's, your opponent's resource, trade with another champion, and have your Light of Aldrich guy come back and then be able to evolve it. And oftentimes, I think what we've seen with Chromatia is you would attack with it, and then your card would just get swept away with a sweeper, given that it's in that 3-drop slot and you're moving into the sweeper territory when you get into 4s and 5s. This line feels a lot like I can send my 4 guy to either hit you in the face or make you deal with it, or I might be able to trade with something that's already damaged, and then I can just go right into Raccoonus here, which is a 6 mana 7/9 with Light of Aldrich.
Yeah, we saw a 6 mana 8/8 before in the previous set. I think this is again better. I think I like Light of Aldrich had higher toughness than power, and this is coming off of evolution that, again, I like evolutions that are safe, evolutions that you count on. So if you put Rufus and Raccoonus in your deck, Rufus is probably going to live. This is one of the champions that were most likely to live among all the champions we've seen, like probably even so far. And it's going to be a huge creature. I mean, it's going to be something that's going to be threatening everything. It's going to be a crucial 9 toughness. We talked about the breakpoints between 5 and 6. There's another one between 8 and 9. We're talking about the 8 mana sweepers, or 9 mana sweepers deal 8, like Charlene's and Cyclonuses. And this avoids that. I think this chain is constructed playable, especially when we talk about the effect of the new gold. I mean, the egg is called gold, but it's the light egg that can bring in actual Aldrich himself, which we haven't got to yet. We'll get to in a little bit. But it's really going to be the center point about playing the light decks and the light decks with Light of Aldrich, because you want some survivability from your light creatures in order to really get the maximum value out of Aldrich himself.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that if you're going down the Aldrich line, you're either all in on I'm playing the weakest stuff that has huge power on it and I'm going to attack, or you're in your mindset where you're trying to maybe balance it out and have some survivability with the creatures that you have. And this card does wonders at doing that. And I agree with you on having more toughness on Light of Aldrich, because if I want to give it more power, I have the option to do that in Light. Right, Light is the element that's has Bless, which allows you to kind of pump your power up. So, the more toughness you have on Light of Aldrich, I think probably the better, and it opens up a lot of options for you. Speaking of Bless, we have one of the biggest Blessers I think I've seen. I've got to double check on that, but we have Land Oriole. And this is an 8 mana 9/9 with Bless 12.
It's a common relic. Wow, it's gonna end games on the spot. I mean, 12 is basically saying deal your opponent 12. We just talked about a blessed 10. This is even more so on a bigger creature. I mean, it costs two more, but it doesn't really matter that it costs more mana. It just matters that it's doing more face damage because at the point you want to do that much face damage, you're going to have 8 mana. So you're really looking for the bigger numbers in this sense. And you play it, and it's going to hit them, and then like maybe you don't even kill them. Maybe you put them to 5. Okay, now I have 9/9, and then you have to deal with my 17/5 or whatever I put this on. And that's maybe if I was even losing. But you'd probably craft a state where this is going to kill in one shot.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really have to because, I mean, for 8 mana 9/9, you're left behind some pretty good remnants. Even if you have to put this on like your 1/1 and kill their creature, that's going to be fine. I think it's good in all aspects. I mean, for an 8 mana 9/9, does it hit standard? Probably not. But I mean, you could play this off. Man. What if I play a 21/9 on turn 2? I'm over here trying to play 9/9s on turn 2 off my eggs. 21/9?
Yeah, it's huge.
What?
I will say I definitely didn't expect this to be a common card when I first seen it. But what I will say is I think that a card like this is meta dependent. And I think you are probably more well versed in terms of maybe playing some of the light cards and the bless abilities. But to me, if you're in a format where you're dying on turn 5 or turn 6, everybody's playing aggressive decks, this is probably not the card you want to play. But if the meta slows down, and you have to play a lot more Light of Aldrich and things of that nature, I think this card gains a lot more inherent value if you're playing in a much slower meta.
Yeah. You don't play this in a meta where you just want to get straight up to, or you can't get straight up to 8, of course, because this is an 8 mana card that requires you having some material in play. But just looking at this card, it's like, wow, this rate is really high.
21/9.
21/9. Those are big numbers.
That's 30 stats on an 8 mana card. That's pretty good. I mean, in comparison, we're gonna see Aldrich soon is only 26 stats on. Granted, it has some other. You can get to 30 if you have it. A Lily in play, for example.
And 12 of that basically has rush.
Mhm.
Like you get to pick and choose where that goes. That 12 power has haste. You just put it on whatever.
Yeah, that's
I think it's pretty strong. Maybe it is constructed play was along with old gold. We'll see in a moment.
absolutely. Well, we'll keep it moving. We have another evolution chain. I don't know that there's much to talk about in this one, but we have Plain Jane Lulu here. It's just a 2 mana 4/4 with Rush.
Yeah, we've seen this plenty of times before. Man, 4/4 rush, basically the baseline, and going into the evolution is kind of what we're looking for here.
Yeah, and we've got Lulu Safar, which is a 4 mana 6/6 Elemental Fury.
I think Elemental Fury is one of the worst. I think Light's one of the worst Elemental Fury's colors because it's kind of a go tall element with all this bless. You're trying to make one big thing, and in a lot of your cards, you want to be dying with the retribution. So you're not going to see as many champions all at once in light as you would say with water with recruit or with things with more like elemental aegis.
I will say
So
I do think that there's a world where, and I'll toss it back to you here. I think there's a world where there are enough Light of Aldrich cards now that you could play a much slower version of Light and it be more resilient, and maybe this hits some playability.
I think I might be coming from an old perception where the light of water cards were less plentiful, and elemental fury can be very devastating with say bless 12, which we just saw. There could be OTK, one turn kill variants of light that I haven't seen before. I mean, yeah, you're right. It could be a whole different world than I was thinking of before.
Yeah, just potentially a slower list. Again, I've always I'm in the same boat with Elemental Fury as I am with Otherworldly. I think it's almost a win more card, just a win more ability in my opinion. But you're right. I didn't even think about we just looked at the Bless 12, and I know I don't want to jump back to that too much, but previously the only time we had seen Bless 12 that much Bless was on Mexion, which was a 9 mana diamond card. So that's baffling. But yeah, like even something like the little 3 mana bless 6 guy, if you're evolving this on turn 3, play a you know uh, Lily, and then you get this blessed up. You could get 12 or 15 damage out of this, maybe with some more resilient Light of Aldrich cards. This is definitely going to require answers, and could pull some attention away from your Light of Aldrich cards, which could make the game a little more complicated. Maybe there's a world where we're a little slower and you're playing a slower version of Light where there's enough Light of Aldrich cards to play and maybe something like this gets played. But all in all, I doubt it sees standard playability. So we've got Glimmer Rock here. There's no ability on this. This is just a non-mana non-non.
Yeah, this is kind of a seed for when they come with hero abilities. Uh, yeah, hero restricted abilities with these named heroes being something. Man, 9/9, not really much to talk about.
Yeah, there's not a lot there. You're getting 18 stats for none. So we'll move on to Sunny. So there's no changes to this one. This one is exactly as it is, as you see on screen. So this comes off of Gemini. This is a 5 mana 7/7 with Light of Aldrich. And
Yeah, I think this card is about playable
by
just as it
itself.
reads.
Yeah.
But this is going to mostly just compound the advantage you have when you're playing and get a hit with old Gemini. I mean, you can beat the Gemini in the first place. How are you going to beat this 7/7? They have to kill twice. But you could just put this in your deck. I think this is one of the better evolutions from Gemini. If, say, for example, you couldn't get through with Gemini for some reason, you play this on top of the evolution, it's going to be strong. But you also just play it. 5 mana 7/7. A lot of Aldrich is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody's not familiar with Gemini, we'll put it on screen here just real quick. It's 3 mana 5/5 with genetic split. Just so everybody can kind of see that. That's where it comes from when it attacks. It splits, it makes a copy of itself, and brings along one of your currently selected heroes. I think there's 7 of these that it could potentially bring along, and obviously you'll only be within in 2 elements. So we'll just keep it moving right on over into gold. And I know you're super excited about this with Light getting an egg. So we've got a 2 mana 0/4 with Hatch.
Yeah, so the previous eggs were 1 mana 0/1s, but Light didn't have one before going in this set, just at all. Didn't have one of those 1 mana 0/1s in standard anyway. So this is one of the most important eggs because I mean all of the other elements could do something, but now we can have a chance to do something. So let's go right into the Aldrich right quick. It's
Absolutely. We'll flip
the
over and look at Aldrich.
the card to put out with an egg.
Yeah,
So
so
let's look at it. 8 mana 9/9 Holy War. Holy War means all your light cards, including this one, get +4/+4 in Rush. So this is baseline 13/13 Rush creature that you want to get out pretty fast. If you get out on turn, 3 with a gold, it's going to buff all your light cards you have and hit them for a ton of damage. Pounding people for a ton of damage early is good, and it's also good late. So the card itself is fine to play on turn 8. What was really that this set 5 Element Warfare is bringing is some really good Aegis cards that are cheap and whiff, and some really good Element of Aegis cards. Oh, and also the Light of Water cards in the
absolutely.
name, of course.
And
Um,
just real quick, touching on this, this is an epic named hero, so I do expect, and just from the rumblings that I've heard, I expect that he's going to be one of the first couple of heroes to come out. So there, I'm assuming he'll get his own active and passive abilities as well.
that's going to be pretty nice in a light focused deck. I'm a big light player myself. Can't say how much I'm looking forward to it.
So we'll move on to the next one, and now we have what I think is probably the best divine protection card in the set, and this is Keems or Cheems, I guess, whichever way you would like to say it. It's Cheems the Divine. It is an epic named hero, so I would expect a hero to come out with it. It's a 5 mana 3/3.
Yeah, our other Divine Protection card was a 6 mana 9/9, and you may be right that the mana matters a lot more than the overall stats because you can loop this better with Divine Protection, just because it's cheaper and it comes out faster. And if you pair this with the Raise Dead or any bounce spells or something, if you bounce, you have to recast it, of course. But if you Raise Dead, you're doing your Raise Dead loops a turn earlier. You could be completely right that if you want to cheese somebody out, I think the other one's called cheeses.
Yeah, Jesus.
People out, and this is Cheems, but
I think the major tipping point between this one and Jesus is the fact that this one is a 3/3. I'll also point out that this is the light elements crafted card, so you will only be able to get this from crafting light packs, which makes the pull rate on this much harder. But the fact that it's a 3/3 makes it much easier to die than the 9/9, and the divine protection, I guess, ability is fine just in amongst itself. But if I'm building a deck around it, I want something that I can ram into your stuff, put in the yard, and bring back to get another trigger on that. And I find that having a 9/9, I feel like, and the audience may or may not know what I'm talking about here, but Satana was another card that was very much like that. It was a 9/9 with Smoldering, which when it died, it brought in three of another card that had Wildfire 2 on it, Lucy. But the problem I had with it is you could never get it to die. You would get it, and then it would either get quantum shifted or taken. Like you could never get it to work for yourself. I built an entire list around putting it in play off of Orange on turn 2. And then I realized this was a terrible idea. It's just getting taken away from me. I could never get it to die. Like, cool, I got a 9/9, but I'm getting beaten every other facet of the game. So when I think about something that I have an ability that I want to be able to use, that requires, if I'm for this specific ability, right? We want to abuse the ability. I would think would be the way that you would want to try to play this. And when I say the word abuse, I mean I want to cast it a bunch of times. So I want to be able to kill the card or have the card be able to ram into something and die. And I just think that having a 9/9 makes that much less optimal. On top of the fact that this is 3/3, as you mentioned, it's 5 mana, so you're getting those loops one turn earlier. So you can play this into Viperous the next turn, which is a 6 mana Raise Dead for 2. And you can really start that chain one turn earlier. You're almost always going to be able to attack your 3/3 into something and it die. And if you're worried about getting extra damage across, right, there's always Bless. There's other ways that you can kind of go about the way that looks. But yeah, I think this is probably the better of the Divine Protection cards in my mind.
yeah, I feel you. Yeah, it's one of the rare instances where more toughness is or worse.
Yeah, I really wish they would have made Satana just a 9 mana 1/1. I would have been so much happier with that for it to just be a 1/1 instead of a 9/9. But we'll move over on into Retributo. And this is a 5 mana 9/9, great rate with Retribution 6.
Yeah, this is basically the Retribution Angel. Well, every ability has like a 9/9 that costs 4 or 5. Retribution 6, pretty good. I mean, maybe you'd want to have less toughness, like you were saying, so it die more and get the trigger off. But I think I'm happy just having a 5 mana 9/9, and when it dies, because I'm going aggro with this. I'm not really caring if it dies or when it dies. I think the raise is so good. I'm trying to pound my opponent with it.
Yeah, I think compared to other Retribution 6 cards that we've seen, this is better. So we've seen another Retribution 6 card in the last set, but I often found the problem with it was it wasn't threatening enough as it was a 6/9 body. I believe it was 6/9 or 6/8. And it never really seen standard play. But with this is more like I'm getting a 9/9 for 5, and I'm gonna bash you with it. I'm gonna beat you with it. And if you do finally deal with my threat, by the way, I'm gonna wipe your board too, because that Retribution 6 is really key. Because now we're getting into the things that are right there above that threshold that everybody's playing around. Everybody's trying to get to 6 toughness, and there are a lot of cards that are really good that have 6. Booger, Fungaroth, right? Like the list goes on, and this is basically saying, well, I'm playing this in an aggressive list, and by the way, when you get rid of it, I'm going to get even more value out of it because I'm going to make sure that I wipe your board behind it or very close to it. So I 100% agree with you. I think this one is just fine exactly the way that it is. I don't think it necessarily having a smaller toughness. I guess it could be like a 9/5 or a 9/6 if you really if you were trying to be optimal. But as a 9/9, I think I'm okay with that because I think you're playing this in a lot more aggressive lists. So now, now we've got another Purify card and quite a lot of diamonds here too. So this is Kami-san, and this is a 5 mana 9/9 Purify.
Yeah, just like the previous card, it has a great rate. 5 mana 9/9s is just strong, and whether Purify turns out to be like blanking a card or restoring a card to its original stats plus clearing a few things, I think no matter what Purify ends up being, this card's gonna be strong.
Yeah, 5 mana 9/9. I have not much more to say about it. I think you pretty much hit the hammer on the head. So just like we did with the last set, we're gonna skip the equip card and just briefly touch on the Golden Dream, which is the Otherworldly card. We have 5 mana 0/8 with Otherworldly.
And just like the previous element, uh, don't really like all the worldly cards. It kind of sucks that this is always the last card, just to kind of how they're numbered. Otherworldly means all your light cards get plus X, which is the casting cost of this card. In this case, 5. So all your light cards get +5/+5. I like otherworldly cards with high toughness. This one has 8, which is pretty high. So I'm more likely to play this one than the other ones that have lower than 8. But I don't really like it in general because you really have to need a large board to make it happen, and it can get attacked pretty easily, and it's pretty vulnerable to a lot of things. So I usually avoid these.
Yep, absolutely. Not much more to say there, but always move them around. I've been trying to so that the last card we talk about is not the otherworldly card. We don't end on a low note. Um, I am super excited about this. I really like these equip cards, and I think we're finally getting some playable ones. And light is no different than many of the other elements that we've had. I think this is going to be extremely playable. We have Soy Hammer's Horn, and it's a 3 mana 0/1 with the ability to equip Light of Aldrich to any of your champions.
Yeah, I could rebuy basically any champion. All these can target any champion that you have. Also, can target itself. In this case, you don't really want to target itself because you don't really want to make another 0/1. But yeah, if you have something that you really want to keep around, maybe a big provoker, maybe your singularity creature, yeah, you can give it an extra bit of survivability, or get it into combat and reset its toughness. Some applications, I think its cast cost a little bit too high, but maybe you have something to say about that.
I think if it was 2 or 1 mana, it would be super exploitable with Aldrich himself. We previously talked about him here, but if it was 2 or 1, there's some weird world where like you go turn 2 egg or turn 1 egg, and then you go like Aldrich, and then you give it Light of Aldrich, and you kind of just have this unkillable Aldrich. I think 3 it might be too much. 2 would probably, in my mind, be fine. I'm just very excited to see what the application of this looks like. I'm all about trying to break the game. And so what happens when we equip Light of Aldrich on a Light of Aldrich, right? If I give the horn to a Light of Aldrich guy, do I get 2 stacks of Light of Aldrich? Is my guy, is he going to be able to live through 3 deaths effectively? What if I give Light of Aldrich to Retribution 6? Does every time it go to the graveyard, do I get Retribution, and then it comes back and I get Retribution again if it dies? How does that work? I'm all about trying to find like neat and innovative ways to see how these abilities work, and this is no different. I'd really like to see what happens when you equip it with different things. Right? What if I equip it to a Blesser? Okay, when it dies and comes back with Light of Aldrich, do I get Bless again? Do I get a re-enter the battlefield ability?
I don't believe so. I don't think it. I think it's a death prevention effect rather than
And that's
relieving them back.
that's always been my question because I believe previous Light of Aldrich, do they trigger on Valmoth or Valgrub, the Soul Reaper, the Soul Reaper
No,
ability?
I don't believe they triggered Soul Reaper nor like Wildfire and stuff.
That's interesting. I thought Light of Aldrich did Wildfire. I thought that was the case, but I didn't think that it did Valgrub, which is interesting. But it'll be interesting to kind of see how this plays out. I do think that um, there's some applicability with some of the other elements. For example, giving this, and this is just one off the top of my head, giving this to a creature with infinite strike, for example. If there is a creature that can attack your opponent's creature, you can kind of clear a board out, trade your guy out, and then your guy comes back and maybe you're able to do it again the next turn. Um, it's also just good at keeping big bodies around, right? Or anybody around for that matter. And if there's something that you really want to try to hit an evolution chain into, it's great. But I also think it has some applicability if you're playing a slower version with Aldrich, where you've given Light of Aldrich to something to kind of stick around. You and I were talking about the maybe a slower light list where you're playing a bunch of Light of Aldrichs, and then you get into like these big Bless 12 cards, but then you're trying to keep stuff around for Aldrich. Well, this on its own is the same as a Lily, right? It turns into a 4/5 with Aldrich on the board. So if you've played it in a previous turn to keep something else around, it's probably still on the board. It probably hasn't been attacked. Aldrich's going to give it some inherent value and turn it into a 4/5. You get your 13/13 out of Aldrich, and it's probably kept around something else as well. With that, we are at the close of Light. And as always, we try to go through and we try to give a rating to the overall element and just kind of see what our thoughts are. So, as per the usual, I'd like to know what your thoughts are.
So when we started, I really like the whiff and swift chain. I think the 2-drop and whiff as 6/2 for 2 is good start for like an aggressive light deck. The huge is huge for a greed creature. 4 mana 7/6 greed or 9. I just read it upside down. 4 mana 7/9 greed. Cheese 1 mana 4 toughness 1 power retribution 2. Lost ability. Don't really know where it fits. Time Warpoo, the most powerful card I've ever seen for a common. But it's gonna be tough to use because like Geody's only good 2-drop to do before then. Then we have Purify things. We have to see how those work out. We have to see how useful Light of Aldrich is coming up with Aldrich himself. He has more applicability along with the gold, the first white egg in standard. And we don't really know how Divine Protection is going to really affect things. If the like light, dark, rebuy the light, Divine Protection thing is going to be a cheesy like win condition or not. I will say a little bit lower than others, about 6.
Did you say a 6? Wow, I think I'm going to be a little bit higher than you. I thought I would be lower than you on Light, but I will say I think I'm in pretty much agreement with everything that you said there. One of the things I would like to have seen would have been just more Light cards in general. I think when we did our count, Light had 30, and I think every other element had at least 35. Some had 40, so we were a little short. I also thought that the ratio of diamonds to just card numbers in general, like 33% of the cards being diamond, is pretty strong. It was probably a little bit more than I wanted to see. I think just in terms of sheer numbers, but in terms of playability, I think it's gotten people excited. I think there's a good number of cards that are playable. I think I'm somewhere in a 7.5 range, so I think that puts us around a 6.75 for Light.
Sure. Yeah. See how it works out. I'm a big light guy, but light has its weaknesses. It doesn't really have as much removal as I like, and you have to kind of lean on retribution. So it tends to be a weaker color, but a lot of these cards have pretty push stats, so that may just make up for it.
Absolutely. Well, with that, that's going to wrap up our Light review. Again, make sure you're following the Twitter. Mine's posted below. Boss MTG's is posted below him. Make sure you're getting your screenshot in with the like and a thumbs up to be a part of that 6-pack drawing and get your free starter pack just for commenting on the tweet. And make sure you're following both of us on Twitch. I'm not sure if Boss is going to be live, but I will be live about an hour before the set comes out, and I will be live pretty much probably for 4 or 5, 6 hours after the set comes out, doing all sorts of giveaways and good stuff. So make sure you're there. August 1st, 2024, Elemental Warfare.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll be there.
He'll be there. I'll be there. Make sure you're there. All right, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for watching.